A shipment of uranium arrived in France, lighter than it should have been. The scientists double-checked every number, replaced every scale, but the missing mass wouldn't return. It was as if the material had already burned, already lived through a process that only reactors could cause. Jack, a quiet geologist from Paris, studied the report in disbelief. The data whispered of reactions too perfect, too ancient. It couldn't be theft. There were no signs of tampering. The only explanation left was unthinkable. Nature itself had once done what mankind had only just learned. Driven by curiosity, Jack flew to Gabon, to a mine called Oklo, a place of red soil, humid air, and singing insects. The earth there glittered strangely, as though it remembered fire. When he picked up a fragment of ore, it was warm to the touch, pulsing faintly beneath his fingers. He knelt, brushing away the dust. The rock seemed to hum back, not from heat, but from history. "This place is alive," he whispered. And for the first time, Jack felt that science wasn't just about discovery. It was about listening to the planet, remembering itself. The air in Gabon pressed against Jack like a living thing. Each breath carried the smell of wet soil, metal, and something faintly electric. The forest around the mine was dense, green as rusted copper, alive with the sound of cicadas and the slow heartbeat of thunder rolling somewhere far beyond the hills. The miners called the place La Terre qui chante, the singing ground, because when rain came, the earth itself seemed to murmur beneath their feet. A song too deep for words. Jack built his small camp at the edge of the quarry, beneath a corrugated tin roof that rang like a drum whenever the wind shifted. His table was a mess of notes, sketches, and vials of ore, black rock streaked with strange golden veins that shimmered even in shadow. At night, by lantern light, he'd tune his shortwave radio to voices from home, the faint hum of French news fading through static. He thought of his wife's laughter, of his son's tiny hand gripping his finger. He whispered promises into the dark, "I'll be home by Christmas." By day, he descended into the pit, tracing the seams of uranium with trembling hands. The readings defied logic. The isotope ratios were wrong, depleted in a way that only a nuclear reaction could explain. Yet this was no laboratory, no reactor. This was stone older than civilization. One afternoon, clouds gathered fast, their edges glowing white against the jungle. Rain fell in heavy sheets, washing the dust away. As Jack knelt, the ground began to tremble, softly, rhythmically, as if the earth were breathing. He placed his palm on the wet rock and felt warmth, steady and alive. In that moment, the equations in his notebook meant nothing. The planet itself was speaking, and he was only beginning to understand the language. The hum that had once lulled Jack into awe began to deepen, no longer gentle, but purposeful. It started the morning after the storm, faint as a heartbeat buried beneath the soil. When he pressed his hand to the rock face, it vibrated softly, like a machine beginning to wake. The warmth that pulsed from within wasn't sunlight or friction. It was energy, ancient, self-sustaining, alive. At camp, his Geiger counter stuttered and then screamed into erratic clicks. The dial climbed higher every hour. Jack replaced the batteries twice, convinced it was broken. But the rhythm persisted, irregular yet deliberate, as though the ground itself was breathing in slow, radioactive waves. He wrote frantic notes by lantern light, each number worse than the last. That night, the radio turned strange. Static thickened into whispers, low and distorted, voices bending under invisible weight. Every few minutes, the sound dropped into a pitch so deep it rattled his ribs. Jack remembered the miners' tales, that the earth talks when men are foolish enough to dig too deep. He no longer smiled at the superstition. When the French lab received his data, panic flickered behind their calm replies. Residual fission, impossible, unstable isotopes. The samples suggested that the reaction hadn't ended 2 billion years ago. It had simply slowed, waiting. Jack returned to the quarry at dawn. Mist pooled around his feet, steaming where it touched the stones. He knelt and placed his palm against the warm, breathing ground. "It's alive," he whispered, the words barely leaving his lips. For a moment, everything, the air, the rock, even his pulse, seemed to listen back. The vibration deepened until it became a roar that seemed to come from the Earth's core. Jack stumbled backward, watching his instruments convulse, their needles slamming against glass until they snapped. The mine floor quivered like a living thing, dust spiraling upward in trembling columns. His breath caught, the air was thick, metallic, charged with the taste of ozone. It felt alive, aware. He ran toward the cavern's mouth, but the light there shimmered unnaturally, fractured by heat and static. Blue sparks crawled across the rock like veins of lightning, tracing every crack and seam in the stone. Each drop of water that fell from the ceiling burst into a bright flash, releasing a hiss that sounded almost like breathing. For a fleeting moment, the cave became something else, not a ruin, but a reactor reawakened after 2 billion years of silence. Jack dropped to his knees. The ground pulsed in a steady rhythm, deep and resonant, shaking his ribs with every beat. He could feel the reaction beneath him, ancient atoms splitting again, memories stirring in the dark. His radio erupted into static, the sound sharp and desperate, before dying into absolute quiet. In that silence, visions came, molten rivers rolling beneath black skies, continents forming from fire. He saw the first spark of life, the same chemistry repeating itself across ages. Then came cities, towers, and light, mankind's imitation of the same forgotten power. Humanity had not created energy, it had merely remembered it. A low rumble tore through the chamber. Dust cascaded from above, beams of light cutting through the haze like searchlights beneath water. Jack covered his head as fragments rained down. The air stung of iron and ash. Then, everything glowed, faint blue light, pulsing, alive. For 30 seconds, it was as if the planet itself had a heartbeat. Then came a single, shattering crack, and silence returned, vast, perfect, eternal. When the dust cleared, the walls shimmered with fading heat. No fire, no smoke, just the slow exhale of something ancient. Jack crawled forward, touching the rock. It was still warm, still breathing. Above, thunder rolled across the jungle. Rain began to fall through the opening, each drop hissing against the stone. Jack looked up, chest trembling, and whispered, "We thought we built the first." The sound vanished into the storm, but the earth below him, patient and humorless, kept breathing, slow and sure. When it ended, silence filled the air so completely that Jack could hear the dust settling. A thin mist of rain whispered beyond the cavern's mouth, soft against the rhythm of his heartbeat echoing in his ears. The scent of wet iron lingered, sharp and earthy, like something ancient newly uncovered. He switched off the recorder. The click snapped through the quiet, a final punctuation to the chaos. Steam drifted from the rocks where water met lingering heat, curling into the damp air. Tiny rivulets formed between cracks, tracing glowing paths that faded as the stone cooled. Outside, the jungle held its breath. No insects sang. No birds stirred. The trees themselves seemed to listen. Jack stepped toward the pit's edge, his boots sinking into the softened earth. The miners' camp below was abandoned, the lanterns still swinging, their flickering light mirrored in shallow puddles like trembling stars. He knelt and pressed his palm to the ground. It was cool now, calm, almost tender. "Thank you," he murmured, unsure if he meant it for the planet or for the miracle of stillness itself. Above, lightning flared behind the clouds, painting the mist in silver light. The hum was gone, yet something inside him continued to vibrate faintly, a rhythm too deep to name. And in that quiet, Jack understood what he had witnessed was not power unleashed, but patience endured, the earth waiting, as it always had, for someone to finally listen. Dawn unfolded gently over Gabon, turning the wet ground to molten gold. Mist lifted from the trees, revealing the mine below, a vast hollow gleaming with water and ash. Jack stood at its rim, his clothes damp, boots sunk in red mud. Sunlight spilled into the pit, illuminating walls that shimmered faintly, as if the earth still remembered the fire that once lived inside it. The air smelled of rain and iron, sweet and metallic, like the breath of something impossibly old. He knelt, fingers brushing against a fragment of ore half buried in the soil. The stone was cracked, its surface glassy, catching the light in flashes of blue and silver. It pulsed faintly with warmth, the last heartbeat of a world that had once burned brighter than any man-made sun. Jack turned it over carefully, realizing how small it was, how small they all were beside what had happened here. He thought of every machine, every reactor, every experiment mankind had built to tame the atom. And yet beneath his feet, the planet had done it long ago, perfectly balanced, without fear or waste. The Earth had known when to begin and when to stop. In Paris, they would call it a miracle of geology, an ancient natural reactor. But to Jacques, it felt more like a confession. The planet wasn't a machine, it was memory carved in stone, patient and alive. He closed his eyes and imagined the first spark, when water cooled molten uranium and the chain began not from design, but from harmony. For a heartbeat, the world had created light simply because it could. The jungle stirred as the sun climbed higher, painting the wet leaves in fire and shadow. The miners' camp lay silent. Steam rose from the pit, curling into the brightening sky. Jacques whispered to the stillness, his voice barely audible. "It wasn't us who began it," he said. "It was time, and time never forgets." Above him, the morning wind carried his words away, leaving only the low pulse of the earth, slow and endless, beneath his feet.